Senator Simons.
Thank you very much, Minister. It perhaps falls to me to address the elephant in the room. Since the end of the Second World War and the beginning of the Cold War, the paradigm upon which our defense is predicated is that we belong to an alliance of Western allies who face against Russia. In January, we may enter a world in which the President-elect exercises his warm personal relationship with Putin in a way that will start to corrode the foundations of the NATO and NORAD alliances. This is probably the worst question of all to end with, but I'm wondering what the position is within government that you are looking at to deal with other Western allies to talk about a potential world post-NORAD and post-NATO and what that means for Canada.
Yeah.
Minister Blair.
My view is not as pessimistic, if I may. One of the things that, first of all, I've also heard the new President-elect's comments and his concerns that he expressed with the NATO that he experienced during his previous administration. But since the invasion in February of 2022 of Russia, illegal invasion of Russia into Ukraine, I think it was Putin's intention to break apart the alliance, to weaken the alliance, which is NATO. And I think he's failed miserably. And what I have witnessed in my role as the Minister of Defense, and I've attended numerous defense ministers' meetings of NATO and also of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, I've seen a remarkable strength in NATO and new members coming in particularly Sweden and Finland, an incredible resolve and commitment of NATO members, and an acknowledgement, given not rhetoric, but the reality of Putin's illegal invasion. We are all acknowledging we need to do more in global and our national defense, and all of us are upping our game and making significant new investments. There is huge and important work taking place among our industries to make sure that our production, because production is also deterrence. And so I'm confident that, I'm hopeful that the new President-elect will learn about a new NATO when he assumes office in January. And I'm also hopeful that he will see that it's a stronger organization, a more committed organization, and all of its members, including Canada, are committed to making the investments that will make it as strong as it needs to be.
Thank you. Senator Simons.
Thank you. We live in hope, Minister.
Yes, ma'am.
NORAD in particular has been responsible for the defense of Canada's Arctic, with global warming opening new shipping lanes, with interest in the North, perhaps evinced both by a Trump White House and by a Putin government. Can you explain to us, I guess, what positions the Canadian government is taking, what resources you are exercising to make sure that in this new world we maintain sovereignty over the Arctic?
Yes, ma'am. And as I indicated in our defense policy update, the Arctic is becoming a more strategic theater of potential conflict than was ever the case in the past. As a result of climate change, we're finding the Arctic is becoming far more accessible, and where we used to rely on a frozen ocean to keep us safe, that's less likely to do the job. We're also seeing the aggressive action of certain adversaries, and in particular China and Russia, who are really leaning in, and in some ways very aggressively through cyber attacks and other types of military-related operations in the North, and others by simply trying to make investments in our critical infrastructure and in northern communities. We understand that sovereignty is more than just every once in a while having a plane fly by or a ship go by when the oceans are free. And instead it means investments in infrastructure.
Thank you.
Becoming a...
Thank you, Minister. Merci beaucoup.